Welcome to Candid Conversations. I'm your host, Jonathan Youssef. Today, I'm honored to sit down with pastor, church planter, and scholar Michael Keller. Michael's journey, shaped by his family legacy and his innovative work at the crossroads of faith, technology, and culture, offers valuable insight for anyone navigating what it means to follow Christ today. Get ready for a thoughtful conversation that wrestles with the challenges and hopes facing the church and our changing world. Before we dive in, here's a quick note. We'd love to hear from you, our listeners. Please take a minute after the episode to fill out our short listener survey. It helps us shape future episodes and serve you better. You'll find the link in our show notes. Today, my guest is Michael Keller, Dr. Michael Keller. Michael is a pastor of Redeemer Lincoln Square, which he founded with his wife and 2 children in 2017. He has been part of Redeemer's life and ministry since its inception in 1989. He is also a council member of the Gospel Coalition and a fellow for the Keller Center for Cultural Apologetics. His PhD is from Vrije Universiteit, Amsterdam. Is that right?
Impressive. Yep. Free university.
Working on my Dutch. In computational linguistics applied to historical theology. We will unpack what that is. Michael Keller, thank you so much for taking the time to be on Candid Conversations.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm glad we were able to get our schedules aligned to have this conversation.
Yes, we've very much been looking forward to our time together. Your father is, of course, the late Tim Keller, who's just passed away a little over 2 years ago. Very much beloved by, I'm sure, so many of our listeners. Tell us a little bit about, as the question that I get all the time, what was it like being Tim Keller's son? But, tell us a little bit about your story and how you came to saving faith.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I had a very traditional, or at least common, pastor's child upbringing. The ministry is the life of the family. Right. You're nodding. You know what I'm talking about.
My life,
yeah. And I think the main problem is not knowing where my family's faith ended and mine began. Did I just have this because it was what was the family vocation? Because it's not just the faith, it was also the job.
Sure.
And I think not knowing where that happened, there was definitely a going through the motions growing up. And in college, I think finally I had the freedom. We can come back to that idea of freedom as well. But I had the space to say, maybe I don't really believe this. It was actually somebody came in my life, said, you say you believe this, but then what you do is very different. And the person was really smart. They used my New Yorker identity of saying, you say that you're an honest person. You say that you're, what you see is what you get, but you're kind of being duplicitous. So you need to pick one of these. And it played on my deep values and sense of, well, you're right. So I guess I don't really believe this. So then I dropped the faith and promptly had an existential crisis, became a religions major, was a Mahayana Buddhist for a short amount of time, but was attracted to the Eastern religions, as some are, and ended up coming all the way back to Christianity as the only faith that I was able to see where it wasn't a set of precepts that one had to live up to and do. It was what was done for you. It wasn't an identity you had to build for yourself. It was one that's given. And my parents weren't necessarily the best parents, but they were really good at forgiving and repenting, and living enough in the world, I guess, to see people not forgive and repent. And that's not the way of the world. The world doesn't really do that. The world always, you hurt me, I'm going to hurt you, or you're dead to me. But then seeing what my parents do, I go, maybe there's some truth here. So that's how I came back to it. But people are sometimes surprised, it wasn't always a Christian, and I'm like, no, became a Christian. And what was your story? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so my story is I was the older brother in the prodigal son story, and then I
Oh,
was the
wow.
prodigal son, and then I was the older brother, and I just went through a lot of cycles of that. So
Every people talk, am I the younger brother, the older brother? I'm like, you're always the older and younger brother
at the
at,
same time.
at the same time period, but then at different parts of your life, you might be more one or more the other. But that's
And that's
amazing.
what it was. I think growing up in the church and having a little bit of the fishbowl thing, I could present a certain way, and so I would be judgmental. I
Mm.
was essentially a great legalist. I made a fantastic Pharisee. Uh, But then I went off to college, not dissimilar from you, and I thought, oh, I had a different kind of freedom. And so was kind of living what I assumed was this is just what you do, right? And then quickly found, wow, this is really shallow. This just doesn't suffice. I had a group of friends who were kind of PCA background roommates who were going to church, and so I went with them and got connected in. Part of that was because I thought that was the right thing to do. This is just what you do, and I'm the preacher's kid and the expectation and all that. Um, but I found that they had a deeper level of right theology and doctrine. Not that that's what saves you by any means. It helped me interpret and understand why the things I was doing weren't going to give me what I thought it would give me.
Mm.
And then I probably went back into a little bit of a season of judgmentalism, especially when you kind of go to seminary and you're kind of, you're getting all the head knowledge and you
Oh,
think
yeah.
you're sharper than everyone, which then I was humiliated in front of classes and things by professors. And it was like, the humility comes back. So it was a lot of ebb and flow within that, but certainly a lot of discovering who God is, who I am, and getting that right.
Mm.
But, to your story, it's fascinating because I mean, your dad was one of the greats in not going down the track of, this is just you're born into this, or it's a works righteousness mentality. I mean, he was the gospel of grace guy. So it's interesting that you kind of went down that other side of the street. It's our Adam and Eve nature, right? We're always trying to say, I need to earn something and be in order to be justified. How did you navigate through that?
I try to be encouraging to parents and loved ones who, their children aren't believers. And I've had people over the years come up to me and they say, man, your father was Tim Keller. I wish, my father was Tim Keller, or I wish my kids had that, because then they would hear, the gospel put well. And some people might say that my father did a good job at doing that over the years. But I try to encourage people and say, you're not saved by just the right distillation of the gospel.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
saved by
that's
the
a good point.
gospel. And
Right.
that's a big
It's a big
difference.
difference. Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
think
that was
people
probably
think,
my problem too, right?
what do you mean? Why?
Well, the same thing in terms of I was steeped in the good teaching and all that sort of thing, but it, like you said, like until it penetrates you, until the Spirit really opens your eyes to see, oh, wow, I really am in desperate need. I don't think I understood my sinful condition. I mean, I could articulate it to a certain extent, but I don't think I had actually realized it.
Yeah. But I think that's where also the encouragement is that your kid
Yes.
or your friend or your loved one isn't going to be saved by just if they just hear it just the
Right.
best
Go to the right
possible way.
conference.
You still need the Spirit to come into your life
Yeah.
in a new and profound way and to change you. So I grew up with what many would thought was a great distillation. The penny hadn't dropped of, oh, what's really being asked of me is nothing's being asked of me. That it's in the sense of it's not more of what you have to do, it's what he did for you. And I don't think that clicked until it
Right.
was needed, and it wasn't needed until I finally realized that what did I have without it? And that was just my story.
Yeah. Yeah, and to those families, this is the importance of continuing to just be prayerful for those
Yeah.
individuals,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Praying that the
And I
Spirit
try
would.
to say to parents, when was the last time you forgave and repented to your kids? And that's always where the tears kind of start welling up,
Mm,
because I'm like, hey,
mm.
what my parents did do, they weren't,
They lived
it
it out.
didn't, what I didn't need is my dad to tell me, son, this is the gospel, and say it in the best possible way, because Well, I had that and it didn't do it because you're not saved by that. What I did need to see from my mom and my dad is I needed to see them forgiving, repenting to each other in front of
Mm,
me and to me. And when that happened, even though I didn't actually in the time understand it, it was only that later on did I say that was different. That was there's something here that I want. And so that's what, even though I went away and kind of did the whole exploration, it also is what drove me back.
yeah. Tell us a little bit about your call into ministry. I don't know if you're
Yeah.
anything like me, but I was sort of like, I didn't want to go into it. I was
I want to
like,
hear
get
that
me out
story,
of here.
but my story was just more simple in the sense of once I became a Christian, I was like, nothing gave me as much joy than to tell other people about it. And so
Wow. That's
started in
awesome.
college and just started, trying out different things, trying, youth groups and seeing if there was any fruit and any uh, desire on that end. But what, wait,
No.
what'd you do? You said no? What was that?
Well, I mean, so let's be specific about ministry. I'm talking about like vocational ministry. My thing was, I was growing, I was understanding, I was loving it, but it was like I didn't want to be in front of people. I didn't like public speaking because I understood what comes with being in vocational ministry because I see the toll that it takes on my dad and the amount of time and energy that he has to exert into it. Not that I was trying to be lazy or anything. I just thought there's something that's
Mm,
probably, different. So I tried going into politics and I found, geez, all these people are trying to find what only the gospel can give them
right,
in trying to chase after changing public policy or trying to create a world where everything's resolved.
right.
uh, and a lot of them had come from a Christian background but couldn't articulate the gospel. Similar to you and me, at an earlier stage in life. And so I thought, who's going to tell these people? Like, who is
Right.
going to articulate? Who is going to walk it through them? Who is going to put on display, repentance and forgiveness and all this sort of thing? And so that's when I started feeling the tug.
Well, that's good. That's good. Well, and I think that's what's needed is that ability to I mean, and again, I think there's this that was weird mystery of you can't, it's not up to you. You don't get to decide if somebody becomes a Christian because you just articulate perfectly. Nobody was ever argued into the kingdom of heaven. There's still the Holy Spirit. And
Yeah.
that being said, the gospel's offensive enough. You don't need to
Right.
make more offenses. And
That's right.
there's too many Christians out there that go, well, it's just the offense. And I'm like, well, did you have to
Well,
make it
you're
as
actually the
offense? Yeah.
offense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the gospel's definitely offensive, but did you have to say it in that kind of tone, in that way? Could you have used some terms that maybe the person could have connected to? So there is a place to put
Yeah.
things in the best possible way, and I do enjoy that as a job now.
Yeah, I fully agree. Uh, okay, let's shift slightly. So your PhD is in computational linguistics applied to historical theology. That is a mouthful.
Yeah, you're supposed to say it five
Summarize
times
it for the
fast.
for the layman.
You got to say it five times faster. It's not fun.
It's not
She
fun.
sells, she sell.
Yeah,
How
it'll
much wood
sound
can a
like Dutch by the end, right?
Yeah, 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 you're Dutch at least.
That's right.
Sorry about that. Yeah, it's just a fancy way of saying that I took in 2000, the late teens. They had just finished digitizing for the first time all of Jonathan Edwards' sermons. I mean, up until then, it was still like in handwritten. It was in half. It was in shorthand. A lot of his later
Yeah.
sermons were in that sense, and so they had just done that. And I had this idea of, well, listen, why am I reading through each one of these? Which I still did. I had to read all of
Right.
them.
Right.
But instead of pontificating what's actually happening here, why not use the latest statistical analysis, which was what's turned into today? A lot of our AI initiatives are based off of these large language models, which basically takes our our words, which you can probably, not everybody knows this, but 90% of our spoken language is really only something like 5 or 6 thousand words. Um, so actually, you can quantify.
Tragic.
Sure, there's more.
Not Jonathan Edwards, though, right?
You're right. It couldn't actually process every single one of his words, but it processed over 96, 97% of his words.
Right.
And try to figure out what's actually happening there. Is he actually as gloom and doom as everybody says, or is one of
Right.
his famous sermons that nobody knows about is, heaven is a world of love, and
Mm.
is he more
Mm.
positive or negative, and passive or active, and all those kind of
Mm.
stuff. So it's a little,
Mm.
it's
Mm.
basically AI stats meets Jonathan Edwards. That's what it was.
Yeah. Everybody thinks of sinners in the hands of an angry God, and people don't even know that, like, he only got halfway through the sermon before people were, weeping and crying and calling
Right.
for, for help. He didn't even get to finish the thing. It's
Right.
like, but that can be a perspective, and so, you know, using analytics like that helps kind of uncover
Yeah.
some great
Well,
gems.
and I just sort of stumbled into it. I didn't know AI would turn into what it is now, but it's really interesting. These predictive equations, which is what AI is, it just predicts. It's a really fancy, multifaceted, multi-factored algorithms that are based off of. It's trying to predict what the next word should be in a chain of
Yeah.
words, and it does a pretty good job. Although there's some limitations about that and of what it can actually do. But it's great to seek out patterns and help you process a large amounts of information.
Well, with artificial intelligence, obviously, a lot of people are now realizing some of the abilities that it has. For someone in your position who has, a pretty good
Hmm.
grasp of lots of its abilities and things, what are some of the things that excite you
Hmm.
about AI, and what are some of the things that maybe scare you,
Yeah,
or maybe
I'll
there's a
say in
better
a
word
nutshell
for
because I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too, Jonathan. I think whenever there's new technology, people tend to either undervalue it and say, it's not going to be a big deal when it
it.
is,
Right.
or they tend
Right.
to overvalue it and say it's going to be the greatest thing since Swiss cheese. I think my theology helps me bracket it. If the Bible says all things were made good in Genesis 1, it was good, it was
Mm,
good, it was good. But Genesis 3, all things were fallen. That means all the
mm,
products that we ever make will always be good and fallen at the same time. It helps me
mm,
be able to keep my head around AI. There's been some really good things about it, but also some really big fallen things. But they also have big blind spots. Everybody's like, oh, it's going to be able to solve all of our problems. I'm like, well, listen, if AI was AI back in when the Wright brothers were thinking about flying, and they put into the computational equation like we want to fly, and it's going to say impossible because all the data that it was trained on up until that point
it's
said
from
that
behind.
yeah, it said it's impossible. Or
Yeah.
Galileo, right? Galileo said, you know what? I think the Earth isn't the center of the universe. And if he,
Mm,
he's tried, if he asked AI at the time, AI would have been like, of course it is Earth's the center. So I'm using that as illustrations that
yeah. Yeah.
AI
Yeah.
AI can is great as a summary of past data, and you might be able to
Mm,
create future patterns and insights from that, which I think will be really helpful because you have now at your fingertips that kind of ability. But it can't actually genuinely make new things. And what nobody's talking about yet, and they will eventually, is how biased it actually is. Because in the past, Google, when you Googled something,
hmm
it listed and indexed other people's truth, and you had to still decide, okay, is is this paper from the UNC the best answer to my question, or is this summary from this blog, or is this now AI just says this is the answer, and it's completely
Oh,
reductionistic. I was listening to
yeah.
A Somalian, I think it was Somali, or maybe Sri Lankan. I can't quite remember, but there was a
Two different
professor.
continents.
Well, two different, completely different places, but it was a professor from a non-Western
Yeah.
context where he
Right.
was saying that he's very not excited about AI because most AI is coming out of Silicon Valley spaces that has a very particular worldview
Sure.
with
Oh,
his
yeah.
assumptions, with its views, and it truncates all of truth and says this is actually truth when it really isn't. And so we're going to
Mm,
find a pushback, I think, eventually, particularly when it comes to metaphysical issues of faith and religion and the purpose of
mm,
humanity.
mm.
AI is just going to really struggle in those areas because, like all science, it can tell us what is, it can't tell us what we ought to be. It doesn't,
Yeah.
it can't actually give us the teleos of what we are. So those are
Yeah.
the limitations, but then also there's some really cool things about it too.
Yeah. I mean, I think it could be a great tool for. I certainly use it for sometimes finding a great sermon illustration. Hey,
Yeah.
help me think of a historical example that kind of fits into this
Yeah.
paradigm, and
Sparring partners. Great to, hey, help me out here.
right.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, yeah. I think for me, it's a lot of the unknown. How far down the track is it actually in developmental phases to where, things will get dangerous? To your point, I mean, it's like I think of younger generations who are just going to grow up only knowing it, right? not knowing, oh, I need to go to the library and research and look at view and point and counterpoint and, look and everything's just going to come in like a summarized form. Is that going to become their sort of, well, this is the truth. This has to be the truth because it tells me so. I think there could be some real danger for that. And certainly we start seeing that in some of the church, coming into churches, and you got sermons that are getting written by AI. And if, to the point that you're making earlier, if it's not even based and steeped in actual biblical truth that requires, rich, robust doctrine, theology, all those sorts of things, what is it actually going to give people? Will it be a prosperity gospel or who knows? Who knows? So I think that could be certainly a potential danger. So let's kind of keep going down that track and thinking about, even a break away from artificial intelligence. So you're in Lincoln Square, you're in New York. What are some of the things that you're seeing just the world just seems like it's changing faster. Maybe it's just we have access to more information, but it seems like the world is changing faster. In fact, I interviewed some guys from Gospel Coalition on Scrolling Ourselves to Death book, Ivan Mesa and Brett McCracken, and they were saying we started writing this book in 2023 before AI was really a bigger deal, and so we didn't even write a chapter on it. Now we have to kind of go back and maybe do supplemental. But kind of in this fast changing world, what are some of the things that are exciting to you? What are some of the things that are kind of perhaps looming on the horizon that you're thinking about? Before we wrap up, don't go anywhere. This conversation with Michael Keller is just getting started. In part 2, we'll talk about the importance of viewing others as bearers of God's image, the cultural stories we absorb and act upon, and how the church can respond to questions of identity from those both inside and outside the church. Stay tuned and catch the rest of this compelling dialogue next week.